that would be really helpful. Just to try and answer some of the questions that are normally asked at the beginning of something like this. We will supply all the slides afterward. And if you could keep your questions till the end, I'd be very grateful. I have a lot to get through this evening, and it would just be easier for me if we kept the questions till the end. But if you have a burning question, maybe you could put it in the chat and Natalie could get my attention, because I don't tend to read the chat as I talk. In fact, I don't even know where the chat is right now because I've got so many different screens open. So yes, if I hope that's okay. So let's begin, because we've got a lot to get through this evening. I'm just gonna maybe move a screen around. I'm trying to maximize something, but I'm frightened that if I do, I might stop the recording. So I won't do that. So I'm Caroline Bateman. I work with Kingston University, and I'll tell you a little bit more about me as we go on. Welcome to this webinar, which is part of a series of webinars. And already we've had 2 webinars, which is why is learning so hard for students that struggle with literacy, and the other one was stop learners underperforming in exams. Now tonight we are going to build on that knowledge, and we're going to look at technology to help with reading difficulties. And then on the first Tuesday of next month, we'll look at both strategies and technologies to help with writing difficulties. And finally, in March, we will look at memory and self-esteem. So that is what the series is all about. If you've missed any of the webinars, you can follow this link and you can go and watch the recordings. So I would be really grateful, and this is where I've got to try and open up Teams such that I can read the chat. So let's hope I don't do anything wrong. I want to just ask you to tell me some stuff in the chat. So I'd be really helpful for me to know if this is the first, if you've watched the first webinar, or if you've watched the second webinar, or if you've watched the recordings, because that will impact how much I time I have to spend on the recap. Now I can't see the chat at all, which is really frightening. Let me see if I keep pressing buttons, will I see the chat? Any tips, Natalie? I'm not fabulous at Teams, but I cannot see the chat. So in fact, maybe you can tell me, have most people seen the webinar, the first webinars?
I think quite a lot of people have already watched at least one of the webinars, and I think only a few is the first time, but we do have some being the first time with us.
Right, I think I've just maximized the screen so I can start to see things. Fabulous, that's great. I'm not fabulous at Teams, and I just wanted to check that I didn't mess up by doing what I was doing. So, okay, I'm just going to try and do the recap as quickly as humanly possible. So here we go with the recap. So in the chat, I'd just be interested for me to know whether you found out about this through Kingston University or from my consultancy Achieve Now, because this will help us in the future when we're organising. But also, I mention it because I am going to show you a lot of videos that come from Achieve Now. So just for your information, prior to joining the university, I had my own consultancy. It was called Achieve Now. And just to give you extra information when this hour is over, I'm going to direct you to a lot of Achieve Now stuff. But it's really interesting to know whether you found out about these webinars through Achieve Now or Kingston University. And if you don't know, then you probably do it through Kingston University rather than Achieve Now. But that would just help me and Natalie organising the webinars in the future. So thank you for giving us that information. And I did actually see the chat. Now, these are the people that registered. Now, we always get a lot more people register than actually attend. And I suspect as the webinar series has gone on, we're getting more parents and less educational professionals. And we also have the breakdown of the ages of the learners that people registered are supporting. And it's really well spread around the age range, but I just want to warn you for those that, well, actually, no, if you tell me in the chat, first of all, the role that you're here as, and secondly, the ages of the children you support, that would be really helpful for me to know. So we've got parent with a 12-year-old. If you could let me know that, mostly parents, 8 to 12, great. Oh, it's so nice when I can see the chat, lovely. English teacher, lovely to have you here, English teacher. Stenko, lovely to have you here. Helpliner, brilliant. Okay, this is really helpful. So even though lots of people who are supporting over 18s or 14 to 18s registered, they're not necessarily here. And in all honesty, last month we looked at a lot of stuff that was more for the older children. Today we will be looking at stuff that maybe is more helpful for younger children, although it's technology I use every day as well. So it's not exclusively for younger children, but we're going to talk today about what you need to have in place earlier down the school so children can be set up for success when they do formal exams. So thank you for answering those questions. That was really helpful. So you've done that for me. So I'm just going to try and do a lightning quick recap of the first two webinars, because even if you've watched them, I'm going to remind you of the most pertinent information that I covered that I'm now building on. So I am sponsored by the Driver Youth Trust, and Kingston University with the Driver Youth Trust have this collaboration where we are teaching trainees how to make all lessons inclusive. So it's not something that we have to do. The government don't registrate it, but we think that it's really, really important that all trainee teachers leave teacher training able to make lessons inclusive for students that struggle with literacy. And this is our strapline. And the reason why we have this strapline is in every classroom, 1 in 5 students struggle with literacy, and there's a real tension between literacy and intelligence in the classroom. And as a result of that, very intelligent children can underperform in school and sadly then underperform in life. And we think that this is really important. But we recognize that the teaching that happens in classrooms that most teachers, teacher training colleges deliver is effective for the majority. And because of that, if you're in the minority, it's easy to think that you are the problem. And we would say the children that struggle with literacy aren't the problem. It's that we're not teaching our teachers how to be inclusive, how to make lessons inclusive. So that's what the KUDYT project is all about. And this is what we're doing. We are teaching our trainee teachers and our early career teachers how to make their practice inclusive and how to actually use dyslexia-friendly study skills. But we realize we want to help these dyslexic children. And in order to do that, it's not enough just to have trainee teachers and early career teachers with this knowledge, but we want to provide free CPD to anybody that has an influence on these dyslexic children. And tonight is part of that, that vision. So with our first webinar, we did a number of simulations, and I think simulations are really, really important to help educators and parents understand how hard it is to be dyslexic in school. And so the 4 simulations we looked at was we looked at a reading automaticity, a working memory, a visual memory, and a writing automaticity. And if you haven't done those, you can do them by watching the video. It doesn't matter if it's not live, you can still do the simulations, and I would recommend you do those. Now, we looked at what typical dyslexic weaknesses were, and we also then looked at how in a typical school year, they really impact on every lesson in the day. That, you know, it's hard to read textbooks or the internet, it's hard to take notes, and it's hard to write to be assessed. So the school year is full of all the things that dyslexics find difficult. And if that weren't enough, when it comes to exams, it's about speed reading and speed recalling and speed writing, which are not the things that dyslexics do well in. And therefore, we looked at the fact that the current exam system discriminates against dyslexic students. And we looked at this attainment gap, and if this is a timeline between when children go to school and when they leave. To begin with, it's all about learning to read, then it's about reading in order to learn and writing to be assessed. And one of the things that we pointed out is as time goes on, this attainment gap gets larger and larger the more schools require students to read to learn or write to be assessed. We also looked at typical dyslexic strengths, which we won't go into now, but we did say that if you compared those to Bloom's taxonomy, that the lower order thinking tend to be the things that the dyslexic students or students that struggle with literacy, the neurodiverse students, that they tend to struggle with, whereas the higher order thinking skills tend to be our strengths. But sadly, that doesn't always come across, because I think if you struggle with some of the lower order skills and the way the education system is set up, we might never find out how gifted or talented children are at being creative and analysing, because they fail at the first hurdle and they themselves think they're not very bright. And this is a cartoon I often look at, and it's something that definitely describes my family or my children. I have very talented children, but they weren't very literate. And I believe that there are many, many students who are talented, but are failing to get into the higher educational institutes where their talents would shine because they're not getting the minimum exam requirements. And so that's why our last webinar was all about how to make sure that students can get their best marks that they can in exams, and technology is super, super helpful for that. And I'm going to try and explain that a wee bit more. So in order to help students who aren't literate, I believe that technology can really help to reduce the attainment gap. And I started off as a parent with struggling children, and I was working in the software industry, and I went to find the technology that would help my children overcome the barriers that they had. And this is what I found. I was able to reduce that attainment gap and then let my children actually flourish at school because they were using this technology. So I then talked about the winning combination for any essay-based exam is to use a computer reader and a word processor. And we looked at that at great detail in our last session. And we also looked at the different JCQ regulations for allowing students to be able to use a computer reader or a word processor in exams. And we pointed out that it is much, much harder to get 25% extra time than it is to be able to use a word processor or a computer reader. And when I say a word processor, I do mean a word processor without spell check. It just, it needs to be the normal way of working. And we also looked at some off-qual stats that showed this is the number of applications they have for extra time, but this is what the applications were getting for computer reader, and it doesn't even really have the laptop reader. It's just probably laptop user. It's probably here in other. So let's have a look here. We've got some figures, and I would say that an awful lot, we're not having the computer reader used as much as perhaps it needs to be, because people don't realize how incredibly helpful that is. So we then looked at, well, if we want our 16-year-olds to be using computer readers, to be laptop users when they're 16 taking formal exams, what needs to be in place beforehand? And we basically said, well, for this to be our normal way of working, from the writing point of view, then we need to teach our students to be able to type and to be using typing to do their coursework. And so they're used to doing that, used to using all the functionality to get better grades for their coursework. And also before that, when maybe they're a bit too young to learn to type, learning to dictate. And next month is when we'll be talking about this typing, dictation, the technologies that help students do well in those areas. But tonight we're going to look at what we need to be set up to be able to confidently use a computer reader in exams, that it is our normal way of working. And here I would say this is what needs to be in place. And it does need to be normal way of working. So it's no good just introducing this sort of thing for the mocks. It's too late. We need to be introducing it further down the school. In fact, I would say we need to be introducing a lot of this, particularly the text to speech, the things that we're going to show this evening, in primary school, because I find that as students get into secondary school, peer pressure becomes a much bigger deal. And even though text to speech is super helpful and allows students to be independent learners, they don't want to be different. So they need to start using it much, much earlier. So that is the end of my recap. How long has that taken? I think I'm in time. So that's the end of my recap. And back in the first webinar, we did this simulation that showed poor reading automaticity. And I'm hoping the majority of you have done this simulation. So please, could you tell me in the chat, have you done this simulation? It looks like this. So if you can say yes or no, and I'm hoping the majority are going to say yes, yes, yes. So I know that there are a few no's. I will just explain it briefly. This simulation shows neurotypicals how it is trying to manipulate or decode text that you then need to answer comprehension questions on. And it's something that I did in the first webinar. And then after I'd done it, I then asked everyone, how did that make you feel? And what comes up is anxious, exhausted, just tired. It's a really horrible exercise to do, but it's very good because it helps us understand how hard reading is. And if you think every day, primary school onward, we expect our students to read in order to learn. And that's why any technology that can reduce or remove the burden of reading is really, really helpful. So I'm not going to do that simulation again, but we're going to look again at what needs to be in place, and I'm going to explain what I'm planning to do this evening. So what I'm planning to do, or what I also said in earlier sessions, is I don't believe that technology is a magic wand. I think there is a temptation to purchase technology and think that we've solved the problem, but really we need to then learn as teachers, as parents, and as students how best to use that technology. And that's where we want to help as a university. So we need to teach students and teachers and parents how to learn using technology, and also just how to learn. I think a lot of schools are very good at teaching history and maths and science, but they're not necessarily taking that step back and teaching how to learn. And it isn't obvious to a lot of students. I spend a lot of time teaching even university students how to learn and how to revise. So it's not just about technology, but tonight we're going to talk about technology. And first of all, I'm going to talk about, well, it's not first of all, reading to learn. Any reading that we do in order to learn. And students have to do a lot of reading. So we're going to look at quite a lot of information there. And I'm going to take you through lots of different technologies, and I'm going to give you links to go back and watch videos and find out more information, because there's so much in this area that I can't go into great detail. I'd rather give you awareness so that you know what's available and you can go in and find out more. So reading to learn is probably where I'm going to spend the majority of time this evening. But then we're going to have a look at technology that helps learning to read. And I'm going to give you some videos that will help you find out lots more, but I'm going to give you a demo of one of the solutions, which is Nessie Reading and Spelling. And then we're going to have a look at technology that helps reading for pleasure. And I have a 3-hour lecture with my undergraduates tomorrow where I'm just covering the subject of reading for pleasure. each one of these areas I could spend a whole hour on very, very easily. So forgive me for just giving you a taste, but my goal is to raise your awareness so you can go and find out more. So this is what we're going to cover this evening. And first of all, we're going to look at reading to learn. And I'm going to talk to you about text to speech generally to begin with. We expect children to read every day in order to learn, which means if you struggle with reading, you're at a disadvantage right throughout the curriculum. So now, if you struggle with maths, you have a problem in maths. But if you struggle with reading, you struggle to read the maths problems. You struggle to read the science problems. And I'm going to give you an example of that. This here is a chemistry revision booklet. And this is something that my son brought home when he was in year 6. And he had a chemistry exam. I don't know how much that is in focus, probably not at all, but it doesn't matter. He had this exam and he was really excited and he wanted to revise, which is quite shocking for my son. But I had 3 children, and the only way my son could revise was if I read this to him. Now, I know nothing about chemistry. I didn't get a GCSE, so the only thing I was bringing to the table was I was able to read it, and he wasn't. And as a parent of 3 children, I found that really, really stressful. But as I looked at it, I realized it was a Word document, and I found out back when he's a man now, he's got a job, he's left university, but I found out that you could use something called text to speech. And this is very old technology, but an awful lot of schools don't know about it. So I'm going to show you it now. So I'm going to open a Word document. And here is the chemistry revision booklet, the exact copy of what was in here. And I basically emailed the school and said, instead of just sending home the hard copy, could you email me the electronic copy, which they did. And once they did, I was able to do this. I could just highlight what needed to be read and come up here and press read aloud. And I think it should work. It worked with Natalie and I checked it. Just
Chemistry revision booklet 1. Contents.
Very fast.
Names of acids and bases.
So let's slow that down.
pH scale.
Maybe not that slow.
Neutralization reactions.
Let's change
A
the
reactivity
voice.
series of metals.
Displacement reductions.
So you
Reductions.
Oh, no, we've had enough of that. So I think you all heard that, Natalie. Everyone heard that okay? Good. I'm assuming everyone heard that. That as a parent made my life so much easier because it meant that my son could be an independent reader. Even though he couldn't read, he was very good at chemistry. He just found the reading hard. And he went on and got 3 A stars at A level, got a first class degree, got a master's. He's got a corking job now. But at one point, I did worry that he'd never leave home because he really struggled to read. But once we found text to speech, that really, really helped him. The other thing while I'm here, I want to show you is if I do Control All, I'm able to change this to be Open Dyslexic font. And there we go, Open Dyslexic. And that for some of the students I work with is super helpful. And we're going to talk about fonts next. So I'm just jumping ahead in that. Now, there's something else that is also available within Word that a lot of people do seem to know about, but I don't think is as good as what I've just shown you. And that is if you go into View, you can look at the immersive reading view. And here I've set it up such that I've said this is the background color I want, and this will now read to me. So if I say immersive reader, it will read this to me. And there's lots of other functionality there. But the reason I don't like this so much is twofold. Is if there were any pictures in this, it removes all pictures, which pictures break up dense text, which is really good for dyslexic students. And the other reason I don't like it is that if they're using it to proofread their own work, they cannot amend at the same time as read. They have to come out of Immersive Reader. So Immersive Reader is very good, but I have to say I prefer this. And how you get this is you come up here. This is the quick access toolbar, and you just come in here and you just add more commands to it. And once it comes up with the option to add more commands, which it's not doing, more commands, you basically select read aloud. And that has never not come up, but I think when you're recording a screen, sometimes odd things happen. So that was the first thing I wanted to show you. So anything in Word can be read aloud. An awful lot of teachers create handouts and stuff in Word. So if you ask them to be emailed or put into the document management system, as well as sending hard copies home, you can have any text read aloud. The same is true on the internet. So if I have a typical BBC bite-sized page that a child would look at here, and what I'm able to do here is I'm able to highlight what I want to have read and then press play.
The digestive system without digestion.
Now, people always ask, can you slow it down and speed it up? Absolutely, you can. I actually use this every day because I always have a lot to read, and I find it much, much easier if I listen as well as read. But I always have it very, very fast because I don't want it to slow me down. And that's why it's fast, but you can have it as slow as you want. So I've just shown you that I'm in Google Chrome here, and this is just one of many add-ons that you can have to have Google Chrome read aloud. If I now open, this is now Edge, Microsoft Edge, and this is exactly the same web page. And now I can come here, and what you have to do here, it's inbuilt, you have to come up here and you have to say more tools, and then you say read aloud.
Watch why we have a digestive system. The digestive system helps to break down the food for the body to process and use.
And then you can change it. You go up here to voice options. And as always, everything I have is always on the fastest speed. You can change the voice. You can give it, I could pick English Nigerian, English New Zealand. Let's have a listen to that. That will be very slow now. So let's try that again. So let's go here and play.
Watch why we have a digestive system. The digestive system helps to break down the food for the body to.
So we've now got a female New Zealand voice, and it was a little bit slower. So that's just showing you, I've shown you on Microsoft Edge, and I've shown you on Google Chrome that anything on the internet can be read aloud. Exactly how you do it differs, and I will give you a little bit more information on that. But for now, I'm just going to go back to the PowerPoints. So we've looked at text-to-speech generally, and I'll just check. I've shown you the revision booklet. I've shown you the internet. And that I put in the PowerPoints because people often get in front of Edge and think, oh, I know you can have this read aloud, I just can't remember how. And I feel like they've hidden it a bit. You've got to go up to the 3 lines, and then you have to say tools and more tools. But so I've put a PowerPoint in there to remind you of that. This next one I think is absolutely lovely. It is a free extension that you can use on Google Chrome or Edge. I have it set up on Google Chrome, and I'll show that to you with exactly the same website that we just looked at. Here I have a Chrome extension, which is called Open Dyslexic for Chrome, and I have a link to it in the PowerPoint. But if I click on this and then say on, we notice that everything now has converted to a dyslexia-friendly font. And if I was then to go into a different web page, it would change it to a dyslexia-friendly font. And if I went into something totally different, I can't even think. I'm going to say Kingston University. This is probably. So I've gone into Kingston University and it's changed that to be a dyslexia friendly font. So if you have a learner that benefits from dyslexia friendly fonts, it's free. It takes seconds to switch on. It takes seconds to install first and then switch on. But if you don't like it, you can switch it off, and it's very, very simple. So that was what I wanted to show you there. Let's go back to the PowerPoint because that will remind me of anything else that I want to show you. So there is, if you want to get the Open Dyslexic Chrome extension, that is how you'll find it. And it's as simple as you just press a button, install for Chrome, or and I've just got it there because it has been installed. I can say remove it, and it really is that simple. Now, when it comes to dyslexia friendly fonts, for some of them you have to download them onto your machine. So to get them in Word as it's delivered doesn't have dyslexia friendly fonts, but it really doesn't take you very long to download them and to use them. And I have a number of videos here that show you how to use different dyslexia friendly fonts in different types of text. So that is a playlist there that you can go into and you can find out more information. Now, this next one is electronic textbooks. These, I think, might be the most helpful thing that I'm going to show you here, because students have to read an awful lot to prepare for GCSEs and A-levels. And this enables you to have those electronic textbooks on a device and have them read to you. And not only that, be able to cut and paste information into revision notes or into homework. Now, then there is a problem with plagiarism, which I have to really make sure I spell out to my students. You cannot plagiarize, but they get over that. And this is absolutely brilliant. And it is completely free. And I'm amazed at how few schools use it for students with learning difficulties. Now, I think a lot of that is because of the name RNIB Bookshare, because you see RNIB, and that's the Royal National Institute for Blind People. And so it's easy to think, well, that's only for students that have a visual difficulty, but that's not the case. It's for students with a print disability, of which dyslexia and other learning difficulties are print difficulties. So this is just a bit of information about RNIB Bookshare, and I normally demo this particular book, and this is a GCSE book that all my children had to read, and I was very, very, very grateful it was available on an RNIB Bookshare. Now, if you're a parent here, you cannot get RNIB Bookshare. You can only schools can do it. So it is absolutely for schools, and that's because the publishers need to protect their intellectual property. So this is just telling you a little bit about RNIB Bookshare. Now, I showed this to my students in December, and when I did, I found out they'd just upgraded, and what I was going to show you is no longer working. So I put a video in, and I have got it all set up to show you this video, and I think probably because it is so good, it's probably worth showing you the video. It is weird that I'm showing you a video rather than showing you it, but unfortunately at the moment that's what I need to do. So let me see if I can find it. There's my dyslexia friendly fonts. Let me get the next one. Let me move, sorry, there's something in front of my toolbar. I think this is it. No, sorry, I apologize. No, there it is, introduction. So this is RNIB Bookshare, and it's very hard to show you this without playing the sound, but I will play the sound eventually. But this is the home page. So on the home page, it has, in fact, let me just press play.
My account, and I've come into my
Oh, I
home
don't
page,
want you
and I
to
see
hear that for the time being. So we'll play, but we'll unmute. So these are all the books that I have as a student. And what I've done is I take this inspector course and I say read now. And then it gives you word for word, picture for picture, everything that's on here. But let me now show you what's different, because I will switch the sound
settings,
on.
so I can say, well, I'd like
Oh, let me go in here and show the video now.
to stop this, and this is RNIB Bookshare. Format. Some books are not. Some books are in PDF format and you have to read them a different way. This is the easiest way. So what happens here is I just press play.
Plot summary. What happens in an inspector calls?
So it reads it for me. It did actually highlight it as well, but I can go in and I can change the settings. So I can say, well, I'd like the background color to be black or yellow or blue, but I think I will stick with black. And I can say I'd like the print size to be bigger. I'd like the voice to be a little bit faster. So we'll go down one, we'll just have fast. I might change the font. So rather than being the book default, I might find this one easier to read. So we're going to say, let's have a look at that. And we see, let's go again.
What happens in inspector calls?
So you can see it's faster.
Right, I think that's probably
Stop
enough.
this.
Oh, let
And
me stop.
this is
So I think RNIB Bookshare is wonderful, but given that you can just watch you can watch the video without me, rather than me cringe as I hear my own voice on a video, you can go in and watch that on your own. But if I was to give you a quick summary, any school can get it for free. There is an admin load to organize it, but it is something that it's a sort of thing I, as a parent, used to volunteer to do in my children's school, just to make the Senko's life easier, just to go in and help out, because I find most people in school are stretched incredibly thin. And so even though it's available, that there is something that needs to be done to administer it, but it is super helpful once it is working. I just showed you one particular format. Not all books come in that format. Some of them are just PDFs, and you have to have the PDFs read, and that sometimes involves having to spend a bit of money to have the PDFs read, but it's not very expensive, and I personally always know ways round to have PDFs read for free. But RNIB Bookshare is absolutely brilliant, and you can go and have a look at that video in your own time. So let's go off there. But if I just was to give you a summation of text to speech, any text on a device can be read aloud. Exactly how you do it depends on the type of text. Is it a PowerPoint document? Is it a Word document? Is it a PDF? So it's at the type of document. Is it a web page? And what you are reading it on. So how you would read it would differ on an Apple Mac, an iPad, a Chromebook, and a Microsoft machine. So obviously in a webinar like this, where you could have many, many different devices and you could be looking at lots of formats, it would be impossible for me to show you all the different options. But what I have prepared is this playlist on my channel that enables you to go in and have a look at, well, for this format on this device, this is how you do it. So that will basically help you with anything. And the link is here on the PowerPoint, so you can do that in your own time. So that's everything I was going to show you on Reading to Learn. And there's an awful lot more that you can find out, but hopefully I've pointed you in the right direction. Now this is learning to read. So now we're talking about younger students, perhaps, that find reading difficult. And what I would say is very, very good for that is an intervention solution. And this is one of the few things that I show that you cannot get a free version. You might be able to get a free trial for a week. If you're a school, you might be able to get a free trial for a month or even longer. But an awful lot of investment has gone into creating these so that they are not free. but I'm just going to show you a bit about them now. Now, because we're short of time, I'm going to point you to 2 videos. The first one just talks about the benefits of using technology to learn to read. And if I were just to describe that to you now briefly, that would be if I was a child at school and I was finding learning to read difficult, what tends to happen is you get put in an intervention group with other children that find it difficult, and you would be in a small group with a TA who would go through, you know, different spelling rules with you to help you catch up. But an intervention solution means a student would put on headphones and just interact with a device, be it an iPad or a Chromebook or a PC. And what that would do, the very first thing it would do is it would do a little test to find out what that individual child is struggling to learn. And then it would create lessons just for them, or it would give them lessons that help with the things that they struggle with. So they're not in a group whereby you're all going over and it says A, well, I know that one, and therefore you switch off. It's only going to show you the things that you're not particularly good at. The other thing I love about it is it saves a child being humiliated by saying, look, I still don't get it. I still don't understand. Could you show me again? Could you tell me again? In a group. So on their own, they can do that same lesson over and over again without feeling humiliated. But at the same time, the reporting is such that teachers know that they're struggling with that, and they can give them extra support, but there's no humiliation. So they are the 2 things that I love about it. And if you watch these videos, they'll tell you a lot more benefits besides those 2. But the fact that it's personalized, and I think it helps children's self-esteem not to have to say, oh, I don't understand. So that's the first video. And the second video, I think I compare 7 different intervention solutions. So I'm just going to show you one this evening because we don't have all that much time. But, and if I'm honest, it's probably my favorite one. I don't think it's the best. I don't think it, other suppliers would have very good arguments for why their solution is better. But the reason I like this one is children tend to like it. And if they like it, then they're more likely to use it. So there's no point having like the best Rolls Royce of intervention solutions if children don't like it. So the one that I'm going to show you is Nessie Reading and Spelling. And again, it's one I opened earlier, so I can bring it to you now. Now, I was doing it just before we started, but it's been 10 minutes, so it's kicked me out, and I'm going to have to log in again. But you see straight away, it has a very, very fun GUI. Quite babyish, maybe, really aimed at primary school children rather than secondary, although I've known many secondary school children use it, but maybe not in a closed private place, so their peers don't see them and say, well, why are you doing that babyish thing? But I'm just going to show you Nessie. And what it's done is it's gamified learning to read. So many of our children, they just love computer games, but they hate reading. And so it's trying to sort of combine the 2. And this is taking a long time to open. It doesn't normally take this long to open, so maybe I won't be showing you. But what it would do is it opens up these islands. And as you progress with learning your spelling rules and you progress with your reading and spelling, it opens up islands and you go up around 10 different islands. Let's try again. Let's see if we can get in. I'm hoping you can get in, but if not, there is a video for you to have a look at. Fingers crossed. Maybe Nessie's down. Oh, you're sharing your screen stuff. Yeah. I don't know why. It might have something to do with the screen sharing software. I'm sad that that's not working because it really is quite fun. Nessie's tagline is learning happens when it's fun. And they do make things very fun. Now, if you had an autistic child, they might find there are too many bells and whistles and noises and stuff. So it's not ideal from that point of view. And the other criticism I'd have of Nessie is you have to train teachers, teaching assistants and parents how to ensure children progress, because most dyslexic children are very bright and they can work out how to play on Nessie for hours, have tremendous fun and not learn anything. Now, Nessie thinks that they can't do that, but I know they can because I've seen many children do it. But you have to be very targeted as a parent or as a teacher and say, oh, you need to do this, and check on them. Otherwise, they'll be earning nuggets and playing, spending nuggets and not learning anything. But I'll give you an idea of what I mean. What happens is they do this little test to find out where their weaknesses are. And so you see, when I first started, I simulated a child only getting 4% correct. Then they went on and got 8% correct. And then they went up and got 30% correct. And these are their individual targets that they'll work through. So this is something that I've just done this week. So I could show you the targets because I wanted to get in and show you the game. So they're the reading targets and they're the spelling targets. So as a teacher, I can go in and have a look at how they're progressing, but I always teach teachers and parents to say, okay, let's get this target done by the end of today, and make sure that they're working through targets rather than just having a lovely time playing on Nessie, but not necessarily learning very much. So that's the learning to read section. And now the reading for pleasure. And I've seen so many great examples of technology taking very reluctant readers and turn them into students that or people that enjoy reading. And that's one of the best things that we can do for students. Now, as a mum who had 3 children who really struggled to read, I saw every opportunity to read to help them improve. So I was always making them spell it out, and they hated reading. And one of the things that I didn't work out, but I'm always teaching parents and teachers, is you've got to separate reading for pleasure from learning to read, and do not force them to spell out or guess words. Just tell them and make it as easy as possible to enjoy reading. And I had a real breakthrough with one of my children that went on to be a prolific reader, and it was after using, well, it was audiobooks, which I'm not showing you because most people know audiobooks. What I'm showing you today is audio when it's accompanied by text, and the text being highlighted because that draws in the eye and helps children develop confidence with reading. Now, I do think audiobooks are fab, and I'm not saying not to use audiobooks. I think they're absolutely fab, but I just think most people know about them, so I wasn't going to use time. So I'm going to show you 2 solutions very briefly. One is Kindle Immersive Reading, and the other one is a library book. So the Kindle Immersive Reading is not free. You have to pay for it. And you have to pay for a couple of different things. But in some ways it's better than the Libby Overdrive, because you have, with the Libby Overdrive, your library book has to have the book you want and no one else has to have it out. It's not like everyone can borrow the same book at the same time, so you have to wait for people to return the book. But the Libby Overdrive stuff is brilliant, and I am going to show you that too. So if I tell you just a little bit about Amazon Immersive Reader, it works on, well, it works on anything. It works on a laptop, but it works on an iPad. It works best of all on a Kindle. So if you've already got an iPad, there's no need to buy a Kindle. You just download the Kindle app and the Audible app, and you buy the book, both the audio version and the Kindle version, and then you can use it on an iPad. But if you don't have an iPad, a Kindle is much cheaper. And Amazon really frequently discount them. So on Prime days, they tend to discount them. And I think I paid about £85 for this on a Prime day. And it really is fab for listening to and reading books. It really is very, very good. So that's a Kindle Fire as opposed to a Kindle Paperwhite. It's a Kindle Fire, which is the tablet, and that's the only one that you can use with immersive reader because it has speakers. So you not all, I think you'd have to get a really top of the range Kindle for it to have speakers, and I'm not even sure they have any that do that. So this is telling you about a video, and that video, it's saying rather than go from the beginning, it's saying start at 8:25, and then you'll see it. And I think I've set that up to work. Let me just get that working. So let me switch that on and let me get that working for you. So I think, no, this is it. I know I've got it working somewhere. Oh, maybe I've got it on Edge. Apologies. Yes, here it is. So I have jumped right in here, and this video has been going for a while, and it's telling you all the dyslexia friendly features of a Kindle Fire. So the whole video is definitely worth watching. It tells you how to change the background, how to make it a dyslexia friendly font. But why I started it here is I wanted you to see, just because you have the electronic version doesn't mean you don't get all the pictures. So I'm going to just switch off the speech there, but start it. So I'm just scrolling through, and you're seeing, and here, it will even read out that description of grandma, which I think is pretty nice. I've changed the background color. I've also got something here that's got word wise, that any difficult words, it explains it to you. This stuff here is just stuff that the way I recorded it, that wouldn't be there. Oh, and then now we've seen it started reading. So I'm just going to go back a wee bit and switch off the unmute so you hear it. Hold on, I'll make it bigger.
To Granny's house. Clunk went the door behind him, and the engine revved up again. Before he could ring the bell, Granny opened the door.
So the difference is, oh, let me go back to the PowerPoint. With immersive reading, you hear the author's narrating. You hear the actor narrating. It's not an electronic voice. So within Word, when we listened to the chemistry revision booklet, it was an electronic voice. When we were listening to the web pages, they were electronic voices. They were all good electronic voices. With our NIB Bookshare, we were listening to electronic books, electronic voices. When it comes to reading for pleasure, I think having the actor's voice rather than electronic voice is beneficial, and that's what you get with immersive reading. You do have to buy the Kindle book and the audio book, but Amazon do give them to you at a small discount if you buy both together. And I have seen children go from being really reluctant readers to really enjoying reading, and that's one of the best things we can do for children. And if we had more time, I would explain the many benefits, be emotional, academic, just anything, mental health. They all really help. So reading for pleasure is absolutely fab. And now I've got another read along book. Let me open up one I prepared earlier. This is The Return of the Jedi, and I'm just going to press play here and let you hear it.
Hello, I am C-3PO, and you are about to listen to the story of Star Wars: Return of the Jedi. You can also read along with the story in your book. Unless you are already programmed to know when the pages end, you will know it is time to turn the page when you hear this sound. I believe the storyteller is ready, so let us begin.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
So I'd let that go on quite long, but the reason why I did that is you have to listen to quite a bit of it before you get the music and the character voices, but that really draws the children in. And I know that my son hated reading, but he loves Star Wars, and this is free. And I was looking, and it's a free in Kingston Library, which is our local library to the university, and it might be free and available in a library near you. So I have come to the end. This is what I've covered: reading to learn, the technologies that help with reading to learn. I think somebody isn't muted, so if you could just make sure your mic is muted, that would be really helpful. And we've looked at technologies in learning to read, and you've got quite a couple of videos to find out more about that. And then we've just looked at 2 technologies when it comes to enjoying reading. That's everything I was going to show you. Next month, we will be talking about writing difficulties and anything you can do to help us promote these webinars, because an awful lot more people could benefit from them than those that are here. Just if you could just let people know, we'd be very, very grateful. And I can now answer any questions that you might have, and I will stop the share so I can see who's answering questions. We have 5 minutes to answer questions. Any questions?
Yes, Anna, would you like to unmute yourself and
Hi, yeah, sorry. Is it straightforward as to how you get the audio book and the Kindle book to sync? So, I mean, is it literally a case of doing
the
one?
syncing is
or-
easy. What isn't necessarily easy is making sure the book that you have purchased is suitable for immersive reader. And that's particularly for everything that I get, it's easy. But I've noticed for very young children, they're not always compatible. So when you're in Amazon and you're looking at a book, you look for it. It basically says Whisper Sync enabled. So, but if you buy it and it's not, you ring up Amazon and say, look, I bought this to use in this way and I'm not using it this way. So, and they'll give you a refund. But yeah, it's very, very easy to sync them.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Any other questions? Thank you. I'm just trying to read what's there. Oh, it looks like it looks. Have you already made the recording available?
not yet?
But yeah,
yeah.
We
But this is
normally
recorded
send
and
them out very soon after, and then they're available on the webinar page. So the Kingston University webinar page, which is linked in these PowerPoints that we'll send you. Any other questions?
Caroline, I wonder if you have like the link to your channel.
Oh yeah, that's probably a good one to put in. Thank you for asking. I tell you what I'll do. I'll start a share again, and we'll go back to this page, and I will open up. There we go. We'll come here. And I think this is my channel. This is my channel here. And I will put that in the chat. So I will stop sharing. Now I've lost Teams again. That's the trouble. Oh, there we go. I will put that in the chat. So that's my my YouTube channel. Oh, I see. You put in the webinar series. Natalie put something in, which is the website where we will be putting the recording once it's finished.
Yes. Yeah.
Thanks, Natalie. No more questions? Let's see if I'll just rewind quickly, but that's fine if no one has any questions. I hope you found that helpful. And yeah, next month we'll be looking at writing. There's less technology, so we can go a little bit deeper, and maybe have some more time for questions at the end. So if there's no more questions, I will say thank you and goodbye, and maybe see you next month. And please spread the word to let more people know about these webinars. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.